The first thing Admiral Sarah Chen noticed when she woke up wasn't the soft chime of her alarm clock or the gentle morning light filtering through her quarters viewport. It was the harsh, urgent blare of the emergency klaxon echoing through the corridors of the UES Defiant, Earth's newest and most advanced dreadnought. All hands to battle stations. This is not a drill. All hands to battle stations. Sarah rolled out of her bunk with practiced ease, her feet hitting the cold metal floor as she grabbed her uniform from the nearby chair. 23 years in the United Earth Navy had taught her that when the emergency klaxon sounded, you didn't waste time wondering what was happening, you moved fast and asked questions later. She was fully dressed and out the door in under 90 seconds, her boots clanging against the metal grating as she rushed toward the bridge. The corridors were alive with activity as crew members ran to their assigned stations, their faces tight with the kind of focused intensity that came from months of training and years of service. Admiral on the bridge. Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez called out as Sarah burst through the blast doors. Report. Sarah barked, not breaking stride as she headed for the captain's chair at the center of the bridge. Commander James Harrison, her second in command, stepped forward with a tablet in his hands. His usually calm demeanor was replaced by something Sarah had rarely seen in her old friend, genuine concern. Ma'am, at 0547 hours local time, we received an emergency transmission from the outer sensor array. It's unusual. Define unusual, Commander. Harrison tapped the tablet and handed it to her. The transmission is in 17 different languages, including several we don't recognize. But the parts we can translate all say the same thing: it's a distress call. Sarah frowned as she scrolled through the data. A distress call? From who? That's where it gets interesting, Admiral. The transmission appears to be coming from a fleet of ships approximately 4 light-years away, in the Alpha Centauri system. Ships that are definitely not human. The bridge fell silent except for the soft hum of the electronics and the distant thrum of the ship's engines. Sarah felt her stomach drop as the implications hit her. First contact. After decades of searching the stars, scanning radio frequencies, and sending out messages into the void, someone had finally answered. And they were asking for help. How long ago was this transmission sent? Sarah asked, her voice steady despite the racing of her heart. Based on the lightspeed delay, approximately 4 years ago, ma'am. But Admiral. Harrison paused, his expression growing even more serious. There's something else. The transmission isn't just asking for help. It's asking for help from the Deathworlders of Sol 3. Sarah's blood ran cold. They know about Earth. They know about us. Yes, ma'am. And based on the terminology they're using, they seem to think we're some kind of military power. Red alert, Sarah commanded. All hands to battle stations. Get me a priority channel to Fleet Command on Earth. And get me our best linguists and xenobiologists down here now. As the bridge erupted into controlled chaos, Sarah stared at the tablet in her hands. The message was fragmented, parts of it corrupted by the vast distance it had traveled, but the desperation in the words was clear even across the language barriers. Please, help us, the hegemony comes, nowhere else to turn, Deathworlders, our last hope. 20 minutes later, Admiral Chen found herself in the ship's main briefing room, surrounded by the Defiant's senior staff and a handful of specialists who had been roused from their sleep. The room's main display showed a tactical map of the Alpha Centauri system, with several red dots marking the approximate location of the alien fleet. Dr. Elizabeth Vasquez, the ship's chief xenobiologist, was the first to speak. Admiral, I've been analyzing the linguistic patterns in the transmission. The species that sent this message, they call themselves the Zelani, they're not the only ones represented in the fleet. Based on the different language structures, I'm counting at least 6 distinct species. A coalition? Sarah asked. More like refugees, Dr. Vasquez replied. The message fragments we've been able to decode paint a picture of a massive evacuation. They're running from something called the hegemony, a militaristic empire that's been conquering and enslaving star systems across this part of the galaxy. Commander Harrison leaned forward. And they think we can help them? Lieutenant Commander Martinez, the ship's intelligence officer, cleared his throat.
Admiral, I've been cross-referencing the transmission data with our deep space sensor readings. The good news is that we can confirm the existence of the alien fleet.
The bad news is that we can also confirm the existence of what appears to be a much larger fleet pursuing them. The main display shifted to show a new tactical overview. The refugee fleet was represented by a small cluster of blue dots, while behind them, gaining ground, was a massive red formation that seemed to dwarf the smaller ships.
How much larger? Sarah asked, though she had a sinking feeling she already knew the answer. Approximately 50 to 1, ma'am.
The hegemony fleet consists of over 2,000 ships, ranging from what appear to be cruiser-class vessels to something that's showing up on our sensors as being nearly 30 kilometers long. The room fell silent. Sarah stared at the display, her mind racing through the implications. Humanity had been united for less than a century, and their spacefaring capabilities were still relatively new. The entire United Earth Navy consisted of fewer than 300 ships, most of which were exploratory vessels or light cruisers like the Defiant.
What's our response time to the Alpha Centauri system? She asked.
At maximum burn, the Defiant could reach the system in approximately 6 weeks, Commander Harrison replied.
But Admiral, with respect, what exactly are we supposed to do when we get there? We're talking about a single ship against a fleet of thousands. Before Sarah could respond, the communications officer's voice crackled over the intercom. Admiral Chen to the bridge, Priority 1. We're receiving a transmission from Fleet Command.
Sarah made her way back to the bridge, her mind still reeling from the briefing. The main viewscreen flickered to life, showing the stern face of Admiral Rebecca Torres, the Supreme Commander of the United Earth Navy.
Admiral Chen, Torres began without preamble, I trust you've been briefed on the situation? Yes, ma'am.
We've received what appears to be a distress call from a coalition of alien species requesting assistance against a hostile force.
That's correct.
And I'm here to inform you that the United Earth Council has made a decision.
We're going to respond to that distress call.
Sarah felt her eyebrows raise. Ma'am, with respect, the tactical situation is. I'm aware of the tactical situation, Admiral. I'm also aware that this represents humanity's first contact with alien intelligence, and that our response will likely determine how we're perceived by the galactic community for generations to come. Torres paused, her expression softening slightly.
But there's something else you need to know. The transmission we received wasn't just a distress call. It was a test. A test, ma'am? According to our xenolinguistics team, the message contains several hidden layers of meaning.
The aliens who sent it have been monitoring Earth for years, studying our communications, our culture, our history. They know about our wars, our conflicts, our capacity for violence. And they also know about our capacity for sacrifice, for standing up to bullies, for fighting impossible odds to protect the innocent.
Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. They're not just asking for help. They're asking if we're the kind of species that would help. Exactly. And the United Earth Council has decided that we are. Torres' expression grew serious again. Admiral, you are hereby ordered to take the Defiant to the Alpha Centauri system and render whatever assistance you can to the refugee fleet. You'll be leading the vanguard of a larger force. How much larger, ma'am?
Every ship we can spare, Admiral.
Every single one. We're mobilizing the entire United Earth Navy. The transmission ended, leaving Sarah staring at the blank viewscreen.
Around her, the bridge crew was silent, the weight of their mission settling over them like a heavy blanket.
Commander Harrison, Sarah said finally, set course for the Alpha Centauri system. Maximum burn. Aye, Admiral.
As the Defiant's engines roared to life, propelling them toward their first interstellar conflict, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to walk into something far more dangerous than any of them could imagine.
3 weeks into their journey, the Defiant received its first update from the refugee fleet.
The transmission was clearer now, the distance between them shrinking with each passing day, and Dr. Vasquez had made significant progress in understanding the alien languages.
Admiral, she said as Sarah reviewed the morning reports, I've been able to piece together more of their situation.
The species that sent the original message, the Zelani, they're actually one of the more recent additions to the refugee fleet. They've been running from the hegemony for only a few months.
Sarah looked up from her tablet. And the others? Some of them have been fleeing for years.
There's a species called the Kithra who've been on the run for over a decade.
Another group, the Moranti, they're the survivors of a world that was completely destroyed by the hegemony 3 years ago. What does the hegemony want with them?
Dr. Vasquez's expression darkened. From what I can gather, the hegemony doesn't just conquer worlds, they strip them bare. They take everything of value, enslave the populations, and then move on to the next system. It's a galaxy-spanning empire built on the bones of thousands of extinct civilizations.
Sarah felt a familiar anger building in her chest.
It was the same feeling she'd had during her early years in the service, when she'd witnessed the aftermath of pirate attacks on civilian transports. The same cold fury that had driven her to excel in her career, to push herself to be better, stronger, more capable of protecting the innocent.
And they think we can help them fight this empire?
Admiral, based on what I've learned about their various cultures, most of the galaxy sees conflict as something to be avoided at all costs. These species, they're scientists, artists, philosophers. They've spent centuries, maybe millennia, focused on peaceful pursuits. When the hegemony showed up, they simply weren't equipped to fight back.
But we are?
Dr. Vasquez nodded slowly. Admiral, I've been studying the fragments of our transmissions that they've intercepted over the years. They know about our wars, our history of conflict. From their perspective, we're a species that's been honing our capacity for violence for our entire existence. They see us as warriors. Sarah was quiet for a long moment, digesting this information.
And what do you think, Doctor? Are we warriors?
I think we're survivors, Admiral. And sometimes, survival requires you to fight. The first visual contact with the refugee fleet came on day 26 of their journey. The Defiant's long-range sensors had been tracking the alien ships for hours, but it wasn't until they were close enough for direct observation that the true scope of the situation became clear. "My God," Commander Harrison whispered as the main viewscreen filled with the image of the fleeing ships. There were 47 vessels in the refugee fleet, ranging from sleek, crystalline ships that seemed to be grown rather than built, to massive, lumbering vessels that looked like they'd been cobbled together from the wreckage of other ships. They moved in a loose formation, their engines burning at what appeared to be maximum output. And behind them, gaining ground with each passing hour, was the hegemony fleet.
Jesus Christ, Lieutenant Commander Martinez breathed. I've never seen anything like it.
The hegemony ships were massive, angular vessels that seemed designed for one purpose: destruction.
They moved in perfect formation, their dark hulls bristling with weapons.
At the center of the formation was the largest ship Sarah had ever seen, a 30-kilometer-long dreadnought that dwarfed even the largest human vessels. "Admiral," the communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the lead refugee ship."
"Put it through."
The viewscreen flickered, and suddenly Sarah was looking at her first alien being. The creature was vaguely humanoid, with pale blue skin and large, expressive eyes that seemed to convey intelligence and desperation in equal measure. When it spoke, its voice was translated by the ship's computer into clear, accented English.
"Human vessel, I am Zarathul of the Zalani. We did not expect you to come.
We had hoped, but we did not dare to believe that the Deathworlders would answer our call." Sarah stepped forward, making sure she was visible on the transmission.
"This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Navy. We received your distress signal and we're here to help."
The alien's eyes widened. You are truly here to help us?
But we have nothing to offer you.
We are refugees, fleeing with only what we could carry."
"We don't need anything from you," Sarah replied. "We help because it's the right thing to do." Zarathul was quiet for a long moment, and Sarah could see tears forming in the alien's large eyes.
"We have heard of your species, of your capacity for both creation and destruction. We had hoped, but we feared that the legends were wrong, that you would not come."
"What legends?"
"There are stories, passed down through the galactic network, of a species that arose from a world so violent, so hostile, that merely surviving on its surface required a strength of will that most beings cannot comprehend. A species that fought not just other species, but their own world itself, every day of their existence.
Sarah felt a chill. You're talking about Earth? Yes. The death world of Sol 3. We have heard that your species learned to harness the very forces that should have destroyed you. That you turned your world's hostility into strength, your conflicts into wisdom, your suffering into compassion. And you think that makes us capable of fighting the hegemony? Zarathal's expression grew desperate. Admiral, the hegemony has conquered 300 star systems.
They have enslaved entire species, destroyed worlds, wiped out civilizations that had existed for thousands of years.
They are unstoppable. No one's unstoppable, Sarah said firmly.
What's their ETA? They will overtake us in 36 hours.
Sarah nodded. Then we have 36 hours to prepare. Commander Harrison, signal the fleet. All ships are to maintain their current heading and speed. We'll handle the hegemony.
Admiral, Zarathal said, and Sarah could hear the confusion in the alien's voice. Your vessel is impressive, but you are only one ship.
The hegemony fleet numbers in the thousands.
Sarah smiled, and for the first time since this had all begun, she felt a spark of confidence.
We're not just one ship, Zarathal. We're the advance guard.
The rest of the United Earth Navy is right behind us. The first engagement came sooner than expected. 18 hours after making contact with the refugee fleet, the Defiance sensors detected 3 hegemony scout ships breaking away from the main formation and accelerating toward them.
Red alert, Sarah commanded. All hands to battle stations.
This is not a drill.
The bridge transformed into a hive of activity as the crew prepared for humanity's first space battle against an alien foe.
The main viewscreen showed the approaching enemy vessels, sleek, predatory-looking ships that moved with a grace that spoke of advanced technology and centuries of combat experience. Admiral, Commander Harrison reported, the enemy ships are hailing us.
Put it through.
The viewscreen flickered, and Sarah found herself looking at a creature that seemed to have been designed by nightmares. The being was tall and skeletal, with dark, chitinous skin and multiple sets of eyes that glowed with a malevolent red light.
When it spoke, its voice was like grinding metal. Human vessel, I am War Commander Vextar of the Hegemony 3rd Fleet. You will stand down immediately and prepare to be boarded. Your resistance is futile.
Sarah stepped forward, her spine straight and her voice steady.
This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Navy. You are in violation of interstellar law by pursuing and attacking refugee vessels. Stand down immediately.
The creature's multiple eyes seemed to focus on her, and Sarah could swear she saw amusement in their depths.
Interstellar law? You speak of laws to the hegemony? We are the law in this galaxy, human.
We have conquered 300 star systems.
We have enslaved entire species. What makes you think that your pathetic little ship can stand against us? You're about to find out, Sarah replied, and cut the transmission.
The battle that followed was unlike anything Sarah had experienced in her years of service. The hegemony ships were fast and well-armed, but they fought with a rigid, predictable style that spoke of an empire that had grown comfortable with easy victories against weaker opponents. The Defiant, on the other hand, fought with the desperate creativity of a species that had learned warfare not in comfortable academies, but in the crucible of a world that had tried to kill them since the day they first stood upright. Evasive maneuvers, Sarah commanded as the first enemy ship opened fire. Return fire, all batteries. The Defiant twisted and rolled, avoiding the worst of the enemy fire while its own weapons found their marks. The first hegemony ship exploded in a brilliant flash of light, its debris scattering across the void. 1 down, Commander Harrison reported. 2 to go. The second ship tried to flank them, but Lieutenant Commander Martinez had anticipated the move. Admiral, I've got a firing solution on the second target. Take it. The Defiant's main guns spoke again, and the second hegemony ship joined the first in oblivion. The third ship, apparently deciding that discretion was the better part of valor, began to withdraw. Let it go, Sarah commanded. We want them to report back to their fleet. Admiral, Dr. Vasquez said over the intercom, I'm monitoring the refugee fleet's communications. They're amazed. They're saying they've never seen anyone fight the hegemony like that and win.
Sarah allowed herself a small smile. They haven't seen anything yet. Commander Harrison signaled the refugee fleet.
Tell them to maintain course and speed.
And open a channel to Fleet Command. The viewscreen flickered to life, showing Admiral Torres' face.
Behind her, Sarah could see the bustling activity of the Fleet Command Center on Earth.
Admiral Chen, Torres said, I trust your first contact went well? We've engaged and defeated a hegemony scout force, ma'am.
3 ships destroyed, no casualties on our side.
Excellent. And the refugee fleet?
47 ships, approximately 2 million beings from 6 different species. They're in rough shape, but they're holding together.
Torres nodded. Admiral, I have good news. The main fleet is ahead of schedule.
You should have reinforcements within 12 hours.
How many ships, ma'am? All of them, Admiral. Every single ship in the United Earth Navy. 293 vessels, including the new dreadnoughts Titan and Leviathan. Sarah felt a surge of pride and anticipation. And the hegemony fleet? Still closing on your position. Our deep space sensors put them at approximately 1,800 ships, led by that massive dreadnought you identified. Understood, ma'am. We'll be ready. The transmission ended, and Sarah turned to her crew.
Around her, she could see the same mixture of anticipation and determination that she felt. They were about to face impossible odds, but they were going to face them together.
All hands, this is Admiral Chen, she announced over the ship's intercom. In approximately 12 hours, we will be joined by the rest of the United Earth Navy. Together, we will face the hegemony fleet and show them what happens when they threaten innocent people.
She paused, thinking of the refugee fleet ahead of them, of the millions of beings who had lost everything to the hegemony's expansion.
For too long, the hegemony has terrorized this galaxy, conquering and enslaving anyone they choose. Today, that ends. Today, they learn that the Deathworlders of Sol 3 don't back down from bullies.
Today, they learn what it means to fight a species that has spent its entire existence turning adversity into strength. The ship's intercom crackled with cheers and battle cries from the crew. Sarah smiled, feeling the familiar pre-battle calm settling over her.
All hands, prepare for battle.
We have a galaxy to save. The United Earth Navy arrived like an avenging angel, ships materializing out of hyperspace in perfect formation. Sarah watched from the Defiance Bridge as humanity's greatest military achievement took shape around them, nearly 300 ships of all classes, from nimble destroyers to massive dreadnoughts, all bristling with weapons and crewed by the best and brightest that Earth had to offer. Admiral, Commander Harrison said, his voice filled with awe, I'm reading 293 ships on sensors.
The entire fleet is here. Signal all ships, Sarah commanded. This is Admiral Chen. Form up on the Defiant. We're going to give the hegemony a reception they'll never forget.
The human fleet moved with a precision that came from years of training and the shared purpose of protecting the innocent. They formed a defensive line between the refugee fleet and the approaching hegemony forces, their weapons trained on the void where their enemies would soon appear.
Admiral, Dr. Vasquez called from her station, I'm monitoring communications from the refugee fleet.
They're calling us the Deathworlder Armada. They say they've never seen anything like our ships.
Sarah could understand why.
Human vessels were different from the sleek, elegant ships of the refugees. They were angular, brutal-looking things designed for one purpose, to destroy anything that threatened Earth and its people. They carried names like Defiant, Retribution, Vengeance, and Redemption, names that spoke of a species that understood that sometimes, violence was the only answer to tyranny.
Admiral, the communications officer announced, we're receiving a transmission from the refugee fleet. Put it through. Zarathal's face appeared on the viewscreen, and Sarah could see that the alien was struggling to contain its emotions.
Admiral Chen, we do not have words for what we are feeling.
Your entire fleet has come to help us. Why? Because it's the right thing to do, Sarah replied simply.
Because no one should have to run from their homes in fear.
Because the strong should protect the weak. But we are strangers to you. We have nothing to offer in return.
Sarah thought of Earth, of the blue marble that had given birth to humanity and taught them to be strong.
You're not strangers. You're people in need of help. That's all we need to know.
The transmission ended, and Sarah turned her attention to the tactical display. The hegemony fleet was less than an hour away, and it was even more massive than their initial estimates had suggested. Nearly 2,000 ships, arranged in a formation that spoke of centuries of conquest and intimidation. All ships, this is Admiral Chen, she announced over the fleet-wide comm in 30 minutes, we will face the largest fleet in recorded galactic history. They have conquered 300 star systems.
They have enslaved entire species. They have never been defeated.
She paused, looking around at her crew, seeing the same determination in their faces that she felt in her heart.
But they've never fought humanity before.
They've never faced a species that learned to fight on a world that tried to kill them every day. They've never encountered beings who understand that sometimes, the only way to protect what you love is to destroy what threatens it. The fleet acknowledged her words with a chorus of affirmative responses.
Sarah could feel the tension building, the same electric anticipation that came before any major battle.
Remember, she continued, we're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for 2 million refugees who have nowhere else to run.
We're fighting for the memory of the countless species the hegemony has already destroyed.
We're fighting for the future of this galaxy. The hegemony fleet dropped out of hyperspace like a plague of locusts, their massive ships blotting out the stars. At their head was the enormous dreadnought that their sensors had detected, a 30-kilometer-long monstrosity that seemed to dwarf even the largest human vessels.
My God, Commander Harrison whispered. How do we fight something like that? The same way we fight everything else, Sarah replied. Together, and with everything we've got.
The lead hegemony ship opened a communication channel, and the same skeletal creature that had spoken to them before appeared on the viewscreen. But this time, it wasn't alone, dozens of other alien beings crowded around it, all of them representatives of the species that the hegemony had enslaved. Humans, the creature said, its voice dripping with contempt, I am Supreme War Commander Kethval of the Hegemony First Fleet.
You have made a grave mistake in opposing us.
We have conquered 300 star systems.
We have enslaved entire species. We are unstoppable.
You keep saying that, Sarah replied calmly.
But you've never fought us before. The creature's multiple eyes focused on her, and Sarah could see genuine curiosity in their depths. What makes you think your pathetic little fleet can stand against the might of the hegemony? We outnumber you 6-1. Numbers aren't everything, Sarah said. And we're not here to conquer or enslave. We're here to protect. Protect? The creature laughed, a sound like breaking glass. You cannot protect them. You cannot protect yourselves.
When this battle is over, your species will join our ranks as slaves, and your world will be stripped of everything of value. Sarah felt the familiar cold anger building in her chest.
You're welcome to try. The transmission ended, and Sarah turned to her crew. All ships, this is Admiral Chen. Weapons free. Engage at will. The battle that followed would be remembered as one of the most decisive conflicts in galactic history.
The hegemony fleet attacked with the confidence of a force that had never known defeat, their ships moving in perfect formation as they unleashed their weapons against the human line. But the United Earth Navy fought with the desperate creativity of a species that had learned warfare not in comfortable academies, but in the crucible of a world that had tried to kill them since the day they first stood upright. The human ships twisted and rolled, using their superior maneuverability to avoid the worst of the enemy fire while their own weapons found their marks. The destroyers darted in and out of the enemy formation like wolves, picking off isolated targets and withdrawing before the hegemony could respond. The cruisers formed the backbone of the defensive line, their heavy weapons trading fire with the enemy ships in a deadly dance of destruction. And at the center of it all, the dreadnoughts Titan and Leviathan stood like immovable objects, their massive guns speaking again and again as they methodically destroyed everything in their path. Admiral, Commander Harrison reported, we're receiving damage reports from across the fleet.
The hegemony ships are more advanced than we anticipated. How are we doing?
We've lost 12 ships, but we've destroyed over 100 of theirs.
The crew is performing beyond expectations.
Sarah nodded, her eyes fixed on the tactical display. The battle was far from over, but they were holding their own. The key was the massive hegemony dreadnought at the center of the enemy formation. As long as it remained operational, it would continue to coordinate the enemy fleet.
All ships, this is Admiral Chen. We're going to punch through their line and take out their command ship. Form up on the Defiant.
The human fleet responded with the precision of a well-oiled machine. The destroyers and cruisers formed a spearhead formation, with the dreadnoughts following close behind. They drove straight into the heart of the enemy formation, their guns blazing as they carved a path through the hegemony ships.
The enemy response was immediate and devastating.
The massive dreadnought turned its attention to the approaching human fleet, its weapons batteries unleashing a barrage of fire that would have vaporized a lesser force. But the United Earth Navy had not come this far to be stopped by superior firepower. They had come to fight, and they would fight until the last ship was destroyed or the enemy was defeated.
Titan and Leviathan, concentrate your fire on the enemy dreadnought's command section, Sarah commanded.
All other ships, cover their approach. The two massive human dreadnoughts moved forward like avenging angels, their guns speaking in unison as they poured fire into the enemy command ship.
The hegemony vessel's shields flared and sparked under the assault, but they held. Admiral, the tactical officer reported, the enemy shields are holding. We're not getting through.
Sarah gritted her teeth. They were so close, but the enemy ship's defenses were stronger than they had anticipated. They needed something more, something that would tip the balance in their favor. And then she remembered the words of the refugee fleet, the legend of the Deathworlders who had learned to turn adversity into strength.
All ships, this is Admiral Chen. Ramming speed. We're going to show them what happens when you threaten innocent people. The response was immediate and unanimous.
Every ship in the human fleet acknowledged the order, their crews understanding what was being asked of them. They were going to ram the enemy dreadnought, sacrificing themselves to protect the refugees. But before they could execute the order, something unexpected happened. The refugee fleet, which had been fleeing at maximum speed, suddenly began to turn around.
Admiral, Dr. Vasquez called out, I'm receiving a transmission from the refugee fleet.
They're coming back. The view screen flickered to life, showing Zarathal's face. But this time, the alien's expression was different. Gone was the desperate fear that had marked their earlier conversations. In its place was something Sarah had never expected to see, determination.
Admiral Chen, Zarathal said, we have watched your fleet sacrifice itself for us.
We have seen your people fight and die to protect strangers.
We cannot allow this to continue.
Zarathal, you need to get your people to safety. This isn't your fight. With respect, Admiral, it is our fight.
It has always been our fight. We have simply been too afraid to fight it.
The alien's large eyes seemed to blaze with newfound purpose. You have shown us what it means to stand against tyranny.
You have shown us what it means to be brave.
The refugee fleet swept in from the flank, their ships moving with a grace and speed that spoke of technologies far in advance of anything the humans possessed. They had been running for so long that everyone had forgotten, these were the survivors of dozens of advanced civilizations, and they still had teeth.
The Zelani ships unleashed weapons that turned entire sections of the hegemony fleet into scrap metal.
The Kithara vessels phased in and out of reality, appearing behind enemy ships and destroying them before vanishing again. The Morantai, survivors of a destroyed world, fought with the fury of those who had nothing left to lose. But it was the combined assault of the human and alien fleets that finally broke the hegemony dreadnought's shields. The massive ship's defenses collapsed under the sustained barrage, and the Titan and Leviathan's guns finally found their mark. The enemy command ship exploded in a brilliant flash of light, its destruction sending shockwaves through the hegemony fleet. Without their command ship to coordinate their movements, the enemy formation began to fall apart. Admiral, Commander Harrison reported, the enemy fleet is retreating. They're falling back to hyperspace. Sarah watched as the surviving hegemony ships fled, their perfect formation replaced by the chaotic retreat of a force that had just experienced its first major defeat. She felt a surge of pride and satisfaction, they had done it. They had defeated the supposedly invincible hegemony. But the victory had come at a cost. The human fleet had lost 37 ships and over 15,000 crew members. The refugee fleet had lost 12 ships and an unknown number of people.
The price of freedom was always high. All ships, this is Admiral Chen. Stand down from combat alert. Begin search and rescue operations for any survivors.
As the combined human and alien fleets began the grim task of searching for survivors among the wreckage, Sarah found herself thinking about the larger implications of what had just happened. They had won this battle, but the war was far from over. The hegemony still controlled 300 star systems, and they would not take this defeat lightly.
Admiral, Dr. Vasquez said, approaching her station, I'm receiving communications from across the refugee fleet. They're calling us heroes. They're saying that today, the Deathworlders of Sol 3 saved the galaxy.
Sarah looked at the tactical display, where the combined fleet was already beginning to organize itself into a new formation.
Humans and aliens working together, united by a common cause.
No, Doctor, she said quietly. Today, we all saved the galaxy. Together. The aftermath of the battle was a blur of activity. The combined human and alien fleets had withdrawn to a safe distance from the battlefield, where they began the process of treating the wounded and assessing the damage. It was during this time that Sarah truly began to understand the scope of what they had accomplished. Admiral, Commander Harrison said, approaching her with a tablet full of reports, I've been analyzing the debris field from the hegemony ships. The technology they were using is impressive, but not revolutionary.
They've been winning through sheer numbers and intimidation, not superior technology. Sarah nodded, not surprised by the assessment. What about our new allies?
That's where it gets interesting. The refugee fleet ships are using technologies that are centuries ahead of anything we've developed. Energy shields, faster than light communications, weapons that can phase through matter.
If we can learn from them, it could revolution.